Good evening, Adele. How are you?
Good evening, Owen. I'm fine, and you?
Good, good, good. Did you get my email today?
I didn't, but it's not a problem.
Okay, I sent it from my work email address, my judiciary email.
Okay.
So I sent it to you, but let me know tomorrow morning, then I'll resend. I sent you the revision schedule.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Owen.
Okay. Adele,
Appreciate it.
any pleasure, Adele, any announcements from your side?
No, nothing. Thanks, Owen.
Okay, thanks, Adele. Then I'll start. Thanks so
Okay.
much.
Pleasure.
Good evening, students. I hope you guys are well tonight. We're going to continue with skills for law students. Are there any questions before I continue? Any questions before I continue? Ms. Koopman, we will chat tomorrow morning about a session. Okay. Now, we stopped last night on page 49 of the course reader, which speaks of the various types of judgments. But before I type on the judgments, I'm going to start with sources of law, because this sources of law ties in with judgments. So our first discussion for tonight will concentrate on sources of law, and then we'll take it from there. Okay. What is, question to you guys, what is a source of law, and how many sources of law do we have in South African law? Okay, sources of law. How many sources of law do we have? Okay, the following students have responded. Queen, will you come on 5?
Advocate.
Yes.
Yes, we've got 5 sources of law.
Where do you come on 5?
I think we've got common law, and we've got legislation, case law, indigenous law in South Africa, right? Indigenous law. If not 5, 6.
Okay. Were
I think
you
6.
part? Were you part of this lesson when I had this lesson initially?
No, I was not.
Okay. So I'm going to need you to concentrate now.
Okay.
Okay. So
All right.
get your notes, get your pen, and start making notes when I speak. Ne?
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, but
Okay.
Queen, we don't have five sources of law in South Africa.
How many
Okay.
do we have?
I'm going to start discussing it
Okay.
now. That's why I say get your pen out. Ne?
All right. No
Okay,
problem.
thank you.
Thanks.
So Queen is incorrect. Um, Michelle is saying the source is the origin of the law or the place where it comes from. No, Michelle. No, no, no. And Michelle, we don't have five sources of law. Okay. The two correct students, okay, the two correct students are Perez and Denzel. We have two sources of law. Perez, the first part of your answer is correct, two sources, but the second part is incorrect. Okay. So now that we know, students, that we have two sources of law in South Africa, we only have two. Zambini. We only have two sources of law in South Africa. Nadia, thank you. They are primary sources and secondary sources of law. We've got, please be mindful of the following, and this applies to Queen. Queen, we've got two sources of law in South Africa, and they are firstly primary sources and secondly secondary sources. Only two sources of law. Now, the question I should have posed first is, students, what is a source of law? What is a Okay, sorry, I disappeared there for a moment. The question I pose to you is, what is a source of law? Paris, no. Not where you find the law. Denzel, no. Okay, Denzel and Paris, what do you mean by the answer where you would find the law? And Denzel, what do you mean by the place where you would find the law? What do you mean by that? I still want, Denzel, I still want to know what you mean by that. Apologies, meaning the source. What is a source of law? What is a source of law? People, I'm starting to get worried. Starting to get very worried. This is a basic question. Okay. Joy says it's where it comes from. The lawyers can go find old cases. No, Joy. No, not at all. Nadia, what do you mean by good law? Joy, no. That is, you giving me characteristics of sources of law. You're not telling me what sources of law are. Okay? You're giving me characteristics. Joy, no. Is Terence not on this group tonight? Terence would have spoken to me. Denzel, speak to me. What are sources of law? Melissa Laru, what are sources of law? Palisa, what are sources of law? People, this is one of the most basic questions in law. Yeah. And no one's able to answer tonight. Okay.
Good evening,
Nadia,
Advocate.
no. Michelle.
Yes, I just wanted to say that the answers that I'm giving, and it seems like some of the other students are saying the same thing, is maybe we don't fully understand the question, because that answer I get from Beginner's Guide for Law students. So I'm thinking maybe I don't understand the question.
Now, what was your answer?
My answer was that the sources are the place from where the law originates, from where it comes. So African customary law is a source. It comes from the customs of the African people in South Africa, for example. So maybe I don't understand the question, if that answer is incorrect.
Sorry, guys. I've broken up for a while there. The question is simple. The question is basic. What are sources of law? Okay? And sources of law are those sources, and I'm saying the word have to. You don't have a choice. It's peremptory. Okay, you don't have a discretion. You don't have a choice. Sources of law are those sources you have to consult. Okay, it's those sources you have to go to when you are faced with a legal question. Okay, because those are The answers, those are the sources that provide the answers to our legal questions. Okay, so when a client comes to you and the client is now faced with a legal issue, the client has been arrested for drinking and driving on a Friday night. Okay? And the client is brought before court on the Tuesday morning. Okay? What is your defense going to be in court? Students? You are a criminal defense lawyer. Your client was arrested for drinking and driving the Friday night. Your client is brought before court on the Tuesday morning. What is your defense going to be? Anyone?
Would your source then be legislation to...
Your source of law would be legislation.
Yeah.
Why legislation, Denzel?
Because there's factors involved. So if he was caught drinking and driving, what does the legislation say about...
Now, let me stop you there. Let me stop you there. Why do you go to legislation? Why don't you go consult a magazine or a newspaper or someone's Facebook post?
Because the legislation is law. It's an act of parliament, and it's where it's our source of contract, like we said last night. So we've got to abide by it as citizens.
Okay.
Like, I won't abide by a You magazine article.
Okay. So in your understanding then, why would you then go to legislation as a lawyer? Because legislation regulates human conduct in terms of drinking and driving.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you have a discretion, Denzel? Can you choose legislation? Can you choose the You magazine? Can you choose a site on YouTube?
No, there's only one source that you go to.
Why?
Because that source that you go to, like you just said, it is where forgot my sentence now. It's the rules and norms that society has got to abide by in terms of law.
Thank you. Thank you. So, a source of law what is Perez saying? So I think we were confused. Perez, you cannot be confused. You were a few weeks away from the exams. Okay? This response I would have tolerated at the beginning of the semester. But you can't tell me now you're confused when I ask you a simple question. This doesn't only count to Perez, okay? It counts to all of you. Okay, so Perez is saying, I think we were confused trying to give you a definition of what sources of law was. Okay, so if I ask you what is sources of law, I want a definition. Okay, instead of telling you how it was necessary to understand the different sources of law. Okay, you are telling me that you can't differentiate between what a source of law is and an example of a source of law. Okay? Students, I'm disappointed in the fact that no one is taking exam preparation seriously. Okay, I asked you a basic question and you guys have the temerity to get into a a argument with me or a discussion with me on my understanding of the law. Okay, so now that we know what a source of law is, a source of law is that source you have to consult when you have to give an answer to a question of law. Okay, or you have to provide a solution to a legal dispute. Okay, that is what a source of law is. And how do we take that further? I said in South Africa, we can distinguish between two sources of law. Okay, primary sources of law and secondary sources of law. Okay, now my next question to you students is, when you have and now I'm talking you not as a law student, okay, but you as a legal practitioner, a lawyer, an advocate, a judge, a legal advisor, or a magistrate, okay, when you have to, in that capacity, provide a solution to a legal question, which source of law will you consult and why? Which source of law will you consult and why? Anyone? Okay, Balisa, why will you consult primary sources of law? Thank you, Balisa. Okay, so to provide a solution to a legal question, we as legal practitioners will consult primary sources of law. Okay, now I come back to the comment Nadia made earlier. We will consult primary sources of law. Why? Because they are regarded as good law. Okay, and good law means it's these sources of law which are regarded as authoritative and binding. Okay, in your understanding, students, what does the term authoritative and binding mean? Okay? What does authoritative and binding mean? What does authoritative and binding mean? Okay, I want a meaning. Um, yes, Perez, you are telling me that authoritative sources provide legal certainty. What else? Good answer. What else? Authoritative sources provide legal certainty. What else? Okay. I will park that answer until someone gives me something concrete. Now, my next question to you students is, how many primary sources of law? Okay, listen to the question carefully. How many primary sources of law in South African law? How many primary sources of law in South African law? How many primary sources of law in South African law? Okay, by Lisa and Joy, we have 5 primary sources of law. Okay, in South African law, students, and when we look at primary sources of law in South African law, which primary source of law out of that 5 is regarded as the most important source of primary sources of law? Which one? Okay, so the 5 primary sources of law were the most important primary source. First is legislation, okay, case law or judicial precedent, common law, customary law, or also known as African customary law, okay, or also known as indigenous law, okay, and number 5, custom, okay, custom. So these 5 sources, primary sources of law, these are the sources we have to consult. These are the sources we have to consult when we are faced with a legal dispute or a question of law. Okay. Now, who can explain secondary sources of law to me? Who can explain secondary sources of law to me? Can anyone explain secondary sources of law? Can anyone explain secondary sources of law? Can anyone explain secondary sources of law? Can anyone explain secondary sources of law to me? Michelle, check the chat function. I gave you Adele's response to your query.
Hi, advocate. I can't see that either. Nothing's being fed through to me, so I can't see any of the
Okay,
comments.
must I read it to you? Okay, Michelle, I'll read it to you quickly.
Okay.
Michelle, either close your app or browser and log back on, or try an alternative browser such as Firefox. It happens to me too, and sometimes it does not matter what I do. I find restarting the device helps.
All right, then let me try that. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Michelle.
Okay, bye.
Okay, let's see what secondary sources are. Palisa is saying secondary sources of law are not binding, but assist in making a decision on a judgment. Yes, Palisa. Nadia, secondary sources of law provides commentary, analysis, or debate around specific law. Very good answer, Nadia. Joy, also saying secondary sources are not binding. Denzel, they're not binding, but for more information purposes like thesis or articles, very good, they are not law. Okay, so most of you have an understanding of what secondary sources of law are, but you haven't told me why they're important. Okay, you're telling me everything about what they are, but you not telling me why they're important. Okay, so although they are not authoritative and binding, and as Denzel said, although it's not law, okay, but many of you are saying, like Denzel, for information purposes, like reading a thesis. Nadia saying it provides commentary, analysis, and it provides the basis for good debate. Palisa is saying it can assist in making a decision. So although these sources are not authoritative and binding, we all agree that they have force or value in law. Okay, they have, although not binding, although not authoritative, they have force of law. Okay, although not authoritative. That is why we regard it as sources of persuasive value. That is why we regard it as sources of persuasive value. Okay, students, any questions for me? Any other questions? Any other questions for me? Okay, so if there are no other questions, okay, I want us now to go to page 49 of the course reader and speak of the different kinds of judgments there are. Okay, we're going to speak quickly of the different kinds of judgments. Okay, and our first type of judgment is known as our majority judgment. Okay. Now, before I go there, okay, before I go there, okay, who delivers judgment, students? Who delivers judgment? Who delivers judgment? Anyone? Who delivers judgment? Denzel. Okay, question for you. Denzel. What is the difference between a judge and a magistrate? What is the difference between a judge and a magistrate?
A magistrate appears in lower courts and a judge appears in higher courts such as a Supreme Court and a Supreme Court of Appeal.
No, that's incorrect. Why is it incorrect, Denzel? Which word did you use that made your answer incorrect? You used one word, and this is what I want all of you to be mindful of when you do exams, the choice of your words. Denzel, you used one word which made your answer fundamentally incorrect.
Oh, wow, okay. Sorry, I didn't even notice it. Sorry about that. Yeah, it'd be interesting to know what it was.
What? You tell me what that word was. Give me the answer again. You said a magistrate?
It sits in the lower courts.
No, that is not what you used. What word did you use? You did not use the word sits. You used a magistrate appears in lower court.
Sorry.
Who appears in lower court? A lawyer.
A lawyer.
Who? Yes. So a magistrate presides in lower court. Okay. And a judge presides in a higher court. Okay. So you need to be very careful about the words you use in an answer. Okay. So next question, Denzel, you can switch off your mic. Next question, students. What is the difference between a judgment of a high court and a judgment of a lower court? What is the difference there? Anyone? What is the difference between a judgment of a high court and a judgment of a lower court? What is the difference there? Who can tell me what is the difference there? Anyone? Okay, but Lisa is saying to me the following. A judgment of a higher court is binding. I think you want to say on the lower court, Palisa. And Denzel, a high court judgment sets precedent. Now, why is that? Why does a high court judgment set precedent? And why does a lower court judgment not set precedent? Who can give me the reason for that? People, everything I'm doing now, okay, is important for your exams. You think I'm asking these questions unnecessarily, huh? You think I'm asking these questions unnecessarily, okay? Thank you, Nadia. Very good answer, Nadia. A high court, sorry, Nadia, before I say good answer, which court has inherent jurisdiction? Okay? Which court has inherent jurisdiction? Nadia, which court has inherent jurisdiction? Which court has inherent jurisdiction? Anyone? Which court has inherent jurisdiction? Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Nadia. Our superior courts have a power, okay? A power called inherent jurisdiction. Oh, can I venture with this next question? I wonder. Okay. What is inherent jurisdiction? Okay. What is inherent jurisdiction? What is inherent jurisdiction? What is inherent jurisdiction? Anyone? Guys, what is inherent jurisdiction? Students, inherent jurisdiction, can anyone of you tell me what inherent jurisdiction is? Court, Joy. Joy, you're not telling me what inherent jurisdiction is. You're telling me something related to judicial precedent. You're not telling me what inherent jurisdiction is. Anyone else? What is inherent jurisdiction? What is inherent jurisdiction? Paris, what did you post? Paris, not that one. You're not telling me what inherent jurisdiction is. You're giving me an example of how courts exert their powers in terms of inherent jurisdiction. Yes, in terms because courts, superior courts possess the power of inherent jurisdiction. It means they can hear any matter that comes before them. But you are not telling me what inherent jurisdiction is. Okay? I need you to tell me what inherent jurisdiction is. Okay? I need you to tell me what inherent jurisdiction is. I need you to tell me what inherent jurisdiction is. Okay? Anyone? Okay, who's saying what? English common law that a superior court can hear any matter. Nadia, you're telling me what Paris told me. Denzel, they can be a. Thank you, Paris. Thank you. Inherent jurisdiction essentially means that a superior court now has the power to control its own processes. Okay? So, because superior courts, because of this power of inherent jurisdiction, they are able to control their own processes. It means now a consequence of that is they can now hear any matter that comes before them. Okay? Now, you've told me now, okay, where does inherent jurisdiction come from? And where is it now? Where does inherent jurisdiction come from and where is it now? Students, you must just give me a second. I now have to go back to my office. I have an emergency at work. So I'm going to start up my car now. We might just break up because from my iPhone, it will go to the car sound system. Okay, so just give me 1 second until that happens. You try and figure out the answer for me. Okay, where does inherent jurisdiction come from and where is it now in terms of our law? Students, are you with me? Can all of you hear me? Just put a yes in the chat function.
Yes.
Okay, you can hear
Okay.
me. Thank you. Okay, so my question was, where does inherent jurisdiction come from and where is it now? Anyone? Where does inherent jurisdiction come from and where is it now? Where does inherent jurisdiction come from and where is it now? Where does inherent jurisdiction come from and where is it now? Currently, thank you, Paris. It's derived from the it's derived from the common law. Okay, it's a common law principle. Okay, inherent jurisdiction. So common law power comes from the common law. Yes, it comes from the common law, but Paris is most right. He says now it's in our constitution. Guys, where in our constitution is it? Where in our constitution? Okay, where in our constitution is the principle of inherent jurisdiction? Where in our constitution is the principle of inherent jurisdiction. Okay, Section 173 of our Constitution. Section 173 forms part of Chapter 8 of our Constitution, and Chapter 8 deals with courts and the administration of justice. Okay, and Section 173, the heading of that section is inherent power. Okay, and it says the following. If you don't have a constitution, okay, I will read it for you quickly. It says the following. Okay, the Constitutional Court, Supreme Court of Appeals, and the High Court of South Africa, okay, each has the inherent power to protect and regulate their own process, okay, and to develop the common law taking into account the interest of justice. Do all of you have that, students? Okay, now if the superior courts, like our constitutional court, our SCA, and our high court, if they have the power of inherent jurisdiction, what power do our lower courts have? What power do our lower courts have? Anyone? What power do our lower courts have? What power do our lower courts have? Do they have a constitutional power? Do they have inherent powers? What powers do our lower courts have? Michelle is saying only the power to apply the law. What does that mean, Michelle? Where does that power come from? Where does that power come from? Where does that power come from? Okay, not Denzel, you are correct when you say it's a creature of statute. What does a creature of statute mean? Denzel, what does a creature of statute mean? Nadia, both our superior courts as well as our lower courts have the power to decide legal disputes. Okay? Denzel, you correct. Their function is only to apply the law. Okay? So the function of our lower courts, you guys are saying to me they're creatures of statute. I agree with you. You are further saying to me that they have the power only to apply the law. Okay? Michelle has told us that power also comes from the Constitution. Okay? Where in the Constitution does it come from, Michelle? Where in the Constitution does it come from? Anyone? Okay. Where does it come from? We're in chapter 8. Michelle is saying chapter 8. Michelle, chapter 8 is big. Okay, chapter 8 is broad. We're in chapter 8. Anyone be more specific? Be more specific. We're in chapter 8. Denzel, are you saying section 16? There's no section 16 in chapter 8. Okay. Which section of the Constitution, students? Okay, Paris, you correct. Section 170. Okay. Section 170 deals with the power of our lower court. Okay. Section 170 deals with the power of our. Okay. Now I'm going to finish off quickly by discussing our three various judgments. Okay, so these judgments we're going to discuss now. With these judgments, I'm referring to now only as a reference or only as bearing on our superior court. Okay, only as relevant or bearing on our superior court. Okay, so as you may know now, we many a times have the situation in our superior courts where matters are not only heard by one judge, okay, but it's heard by a few judges, okay. We will always find the situation where there could be a minimum of two judges, okay? But if it's more than two judges, it's always an uneven number, okay? So it can be a minimum of two judges, but it will then after that always be an uneven number, like 3, 5, or 7, etc. Okay? Always an uneven number. Okay? So when more than one judge hears a particular matter, okay, each judge may grant judgment that matter. Okay? So the first type of judgment we're looking at is the majority judgment. Okay? So students, in a majority judgment, we have the situation that the majority of the judges who have heard this particular matter or this particular case gives the same judgment, okay? Very, very importantly, the same judgment based on the same reason, okay? The majority of judges hearing the matter give the same judgment based on the same reasons. Okay? Further on, one judge that is normally the most senior judge amongst the judges agree. Okay? So one judge who's the senior judge gives judgment and the others concur. We say they concur or they agree. Okay? They concur or they agree. The reason for the decision or the ratio decidendi of the majority judgment create precedent to be used in future cases and is binding. Okay? The last part of what I read to you now tells you, and you should know now, that a majority judgment is then regarded or can be regarded as a primary source of law. Why? Because it is a source that is binding. Okay? It is a source that is binding. Okay? The next type of judgment is the minority judgment. Okay? And in a minority judgment, students, it tells us that the judge disagrees with the majority and reaches a different conclusion, okay, and reaches a different conclusion. In such a case, the judge differs with the majority of judges as far as the judgment and the reasons for the judgment are concerned. Okay, so there's disagreement on the judgment and the reasons for the judgment. Okay, such a judgment, very importantly, does not create judicial precedent. Okay, but however, it's a source of persuasive value. So a minority judgment is then regarded as a secondary source of law. Okay, as a secondary source of law. Okay, the last judgment is called the separate judgment. And in this type of judgment, a judge does not agree with the conclusion of other judges, but has different reasons for his or her judgment. Any reasons added by the judge do not establish judicial precedent, meaning the ratio decidendi is only to be found in the majority judgment. Okay, so what you must be mindful of is that the minority and the separate judgment are regarded as secondary sources of law, and the majority judgment is the only type of judgment that is regarded as a primary source of law. Okay. Please, students, there's a message from Adele now regarding messages. Please respond to these. You guys, this is an instruction from me because revision is going to get more intense. So you need to prepare thoroughly. Your responses in these revision sessions give me an indication of your preparedness for the exams. Okay, and tonight I wasn't impressed. Okay, so we speak to each other on Saturday again. Please come to me prepared. If you're not prepared or you don't know how to prepare, please advise me and arrange a consultation session with me so that I know where you at and so that I know what support to provide to you. Okay, students? So I'm going to conclude here for tonight and then we speak to each other on Saturday again. Thank you, students. Have a good evening and study well, prepare well. Thank you so much. Michelle, in terms of your question, wait on tomorrow. Adele will send you guys a revision timetable. Okay. So thank you. But for this week, I will be online on Saturday. Okay, I'll be online. I think I'm online this Friday evening as well as Saturday. Okay, so I'm online for revision on Friday, and then I'm online on Saturday again for um for law person. Yeah? Thank you guys. Have a good evening. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, Adele, are you there?
I am.
Regarding your messages, I haven't received any, okay, at least 2 out of the 6 for the consults. And I'm based in Athlone.
Wait. You haven't received any messages for the
Consultations. I've been sending since the 30th of October, and out of
Yes.
those, only like probably 3 messages came back to say that someone will get back, or the lecturer will get back to us with the time.
Okay. Do me a favor. Just quickly write down your name and your student number and tell me it's about the consultations, and I'm quickly going to check it. And then what you can do, is send me an email with your queries, and then I'll book it in for you if anything's wrong.
Okay, not a problem, we'll do that.
I just want to...
Hi, Adele.
Hi there. Do me a favor. Hold on. The previous student who spoke to me, who was that?
Nadia.
Booking in queries. What's your name?
Nadia Pokman.
Nadia, is it you? Nadia, do me a favor. Please put your cell phone number in the chat for me. Then I'm going to WhatsApp you.
Okay, not a problem, we'll do.
Thank you very much. Yes,
Hi,
ma'am.
Adele. Yes, Queen
Yes.
here. I'm not from the province. Is it possible that maybe I can receive messages?
Yes.
Okay.
Do me a favor. I saw you wrote there, I don't receive any communication. All you do is, look, your name will come up, give me your student number and say, please add me to the message list.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Adele.
Pleasure.
It's Denzel. The message, does it come on our Office 365, right?
It comes to your My Life address.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Denzel, do you get my my messages?
No, well, I have to go into My Life because I normally just go on to my Office 360.
Okay. Now you have to go into your UNISA My Life address. That's where all the messages go to.
Okay, that's where I've been missing it. Thank you for that. Okay, I'll have a look there.
Please, and if you don't receive it there, Denzel, let me know. And then you come back to this forum and you post me the same message as Queen has now done, and just tell me, give me your student number and say, please add me to your message list so that I can make sure, you know what, just add it in any way so that I can make sure that you are added.
Okay.
Okay. Joy? Joy, are you still there?
Hi, Adele.
Hi there. Are you from the Western Cape?
Yes, ma'am. Elsa's River.
And are you registered for SCL this semester?
Yes, as far as I'm aware.
Okay. Okay. You didn't make supposed to write exams at the end of the semester, of the second semester, but you were registered in the first semester.
Yes, and then I requested for this subject to be moved to the second semester.
Okay, but please just, have you given me your student number?
Yes, it is in the chat there. Because
Okay,
I
wait.
wasn't sure, if I am part of that message group or
Yes.
not, so I thought I'd just add it just in case.
Yes, I've got it now. I'll just make
Thank
sure
you.
and add you. Okay.
Thank you, much appreciated.
Pleasure. Okay, Denzel, I've got it. Thank you.
Great.